everyone, this is CricketSong with Inner Wisdom, and this is going to be a tarot spreads video. And we are doing today the spread which is labeled Interpretation of Dream. You can find this spread in this book, Illustrated Tarot Spreads by Filner and Schreiner. And this particular spread, Interpretation of Dreams, is on page 20. Okay, this is a very simple spread. It has 5 cards. The first card, card number 1, position number 1, you are going to, it represents your dream that you want to interpret. So what you're going to do is you're going to go through your deck and you are going to choose a card that you feel connects to your dream, and this will be connected to the spread. So you are going to flip through and pick a card. So I just arbitrarily picked the 4 of Pentacles to represent the dream. The second position is this card, and this card represents what past event does the dream relate to. The third card, which is up here, is what is the theme of the dream. The fourth card here is what is the message of the dream. And the last card is how shall I respond to the message of the dream. So the only card you purposefully pick, you look at your deck, face cards up, is this card. Okay, and then you lay out the other cards in the spread. So this is the second card. What past events does the dream relate to? The third card, what is the theme of the dream? The fourth card, what is the message of the dream? And the fifth card, how shall I respond to the message of the dream? So we're using the Rider Tarot deck, the Rider-Waite Tarot. We're using this deck for learning purposes, but we're going to, after I interpret this, we're going to look at how it would look with another deck. Okay, so my dream. I chose this card, let's say, because I felt that the dream really dealt with me holding on to possessions. In this dream, I was sitting in this room and I had all my prized possessions surrounding me, and people were asking to borrow certain things like my PS4 or my beautiful sword or my my statue of Baphomet, or they wanted to take, I had a license plate from my car, they wanted to take my car, they wanted to take my cat, and they wanted to take my dog, and there was my purse filled with money, they wanted to take my purse with money. So that was my dream, say, so that's why I chose this card. It was me feeling as if people wanted to take away my physical things that I had, and that was what was my dream about. So I look at that, and that's why this card is represented by that. So the second card, what past event does the dream relate to? So the past event that the dream relates to, I'm seeing here the 10 of Wands, reversed. So this would talk to me, because the image of the card is walking away from my indicator card, is talking about maybe a time where, if I look at the 10 of Wands upright, this would talk to me about a lot of responsibilities and burdens and things that I did, energy that I was putting towards this. Because this is reversed, this is perhaps suggesting that this relates to in the past when I had no responsibilities, when I had no obligations, when I wasn't spending my energy on something I was doing outside of myself or outside of the home. So I would suggest that this relates to a time in the past when maybe I lost my job, or I had no job, or I had no place I was going to bring to me these physical possessions that I had that now I'm dreaming about people trying to take from me. So the third card, what is the theme of the dream? The third card here is Temperance, a major arcana card, as well as the fourth card being a major arcana card. So these two cards would tell me that these two things, the theme and the message of the dream, are important aspects that I need to remember in regards to the dream. The circumstances don't matter, the actual scene doesn't matter. It's the theme and the message that matter here for me in the reading. And when I see Temperance, it talks about patience. It talks about putting faith or putting my emotional and my spiritual energy into going with the flow of the energy of the universe, following my life's purpose, following my true will, my authentic self, however you envision this to be, but being patient with it, not forcing it, not forcing something to happen before I'm ready or the situation is right, not harvesting things before they're ready to be harvested. That kind of thing. The idea of taking this time to really feel through situations. That's the theme of the dream. So if I would relate it to my actual dream is, not giving up personal possessions that I'm not ready to give up. Not loaning people things that I'm not ready to release. Not letting people borrow money if I'm not comfortable with it. Not letting people take my car, or not selling my car, or giving up the lease of my car if I still feel I need that car. So it's not doing things before it's time. The message of the dream is the Chariot, and this talks to me about overcoming difficulties, being the victor in battles and conflicts, being able to overcome, being able to work through, being able to find a solution, and really feeling good about it and being in a place of victory. Really not failing but succeeding. So this would tell me that in regards to my dream, I will succeed in working through whatever this is. I will succeed. I will feel confident. I will overcome. I will find a solution to all these people asking for things from me, physical things from me that I am unable to give them. So maybe at some point I will have an extra car, or I'll have extra money, or I will have my dog or my cat or whatever it is I feel that they wanted from me. I will be able to share that with them without feeling that I'm giving it up before it's time. So again, those two things would be themes for me to look at, and cards and situations for me to look at in my life, because these are important points for me to consider. And the last card, how shall I respond to the message of the dream? The Two of Wands talks to me about moving forward with my energy, but taking a moment and a pause to consider exactly what I'm going to do. Not to emotionally respond to the situation, but to take time to consider my options, to consider where I am, to consider where I'm going, and then go through and find the best course of action, or the best path, or the best way to get to where I want to go. This would tell me again that I would use Temperance, and I would consider what I want to do about these physical possessions that were represented in my dream. The car, what does that represent to me? My pets, money, all these things, to consider those things and see where I want to go, to see where I am, and to see how I can get there before I decide to either release or give to others or to share with someone these things that I feel very, very strongly about. That's how I would interpret this. So now I want to show you the cards in another deck to see how it might be interpreted a little differently. And the deck that I'm using is the Book of Shadows Tarot. We're looking at Volume 1, which is the As Above cards. They do have a Volume 2, which is a As Below. So let's put out the cards. So Pentacles are represented by Earth. So that's that card. We're going to look at Ostara is Temperance, and Transformation is the Chariot. Now, I'm going to show you the next two cards in a couple of different things. when I read wands, me as a reader, I traditionally read wands as the air element and swords as the fire element. However, traditionally, wands are fire and swords are air. So what I'm going to do, because this deck does it by elements, I'm going to show you both the fire for wands and the air for wands for the 10 as well as the 2 of wands. So we have fire and air. Honestly, I'm going to read them as I would read them, but we can look at in case you would read them in the traditional sense. Okay, so the dream, 4 of Pentacles, which would be the earth, the 4 of earth, earth 4. I would still use this card, maybe not necessarily. Maybe I would not have chosen this card to represent my dream, because we see gnomes here and the earth. I don't know if I would actually interpret it in the same way. This to me talks about gnomes, the gnomes representing earth, looking at this bridge that they've built and sort of, what are they looking at? I don't know, they're looking at something out above that we can't see. Oh, perhaps maybe people coming to take away what they've created. I don't know if I would have chosen that card to represent that specific dream. So, I don't know. I'm kind of stumped on that. I may have chosen a different card. I didn't actually look through to pick a card to represent that dream, but I might represent the dream in a different way. Let's look to the second card, which is what does the past events, what past events does the dream relate to? Okay, so if we're looking here, the Rider-Waite, I talked about responsibilities. The 10 of fire talks about the constellations here. And this I might have actually read as it might have this specific dream, past events dealing with other people, because when I look at the constellations, I consider the people that they represent, the energies of the individuals that it represents, and my interactions with those individuals. That's how I would really read that if it were that. And the fact that it's reversed, I would say perhaps the lack of interaction I have with people in regards to fire being more of a purification and a releasing, and through manifestation through the purification process. This is the air, if I were to consider the wands. And this is kind of trippy, because see, she's looking at a deck, this deck, and she has all the aces in front of her of all the different elements, and she's holding up the 10 of air, which is what she is. And in that deck you have that, and she's, you know what I mean? So it's almost like a mirror image. I'm going to just look at the book, which I don't normally do and I haven't done, to see what the 10 of air here. It is called the Tarot. And it says, having much control over a situation, the potential to easily achieve goals or desires. So yeah, so she has control over everything because she's holding the tarot in front of her and she's choosing a card. Now, this is reversed. So it's very similar to the fire card, having the 10 of fire and having my interactions and all the interactions that I lack. This 10 of air would suggest to me that a lack of control over the situation. That she, even though she has the answers to her with the deck in front of her, that she can gain insight that she requires, she hasn't. So she doesn't have the insight. So that's how I would interpret this in regards to the dream if I still use the dream in the same way. Feeling as if people want to take away my possessions, or they're asking me to give up things that I'm not ready to give up. This would suggest, if I look at the air, that I have the answers, but I'm not considering it. And this position of the card is, how does the past relate to my dream? That maybe I had answers to situations, I had ways to gain insight, but I didn't do so. So that's affecting where I am now. And the Ten of Fire talks to me about having lack of interactions with people is what's keeping me from making decisions now, because that's what I didn't have in the past. I didn't have this interaction with others that might have been helpful to me. For the fire card, the 10 is the stars. And in the little book it talks about fate. You know, it's fated in the stars. Your destiny is already written. But I wouldn't read it necessarily like that, so that's how I would read that position. The next position is, what is the theme of the dream? So Ostara is what is represented by Temperance card in the Rider-Waite. So Ostara would talk to me about new beginnings. It would talk to me about, yes, having patience and allowing things to bloom as they should in the time that they should. It talks to me about, obviously, the springtime, and it talks to me about being gentle, you know, not forcing things, because that's what happens. The flowers bloom. You can't force it. It happens in its own time. So I would still interpret that in the same way. The Chariot card, the card that is represented by the Chariot is the Transformation card. Transformation from day to night. It's showing the daytime and the nighttime. And I don't know if I would actually read that in the same way. Generally, I look at the Chariot as winning a battle. Transformation, I would read in a way of sort of understanding that a transformation is taking place, and there isn't anything I can do to really stop that from happening, but that I should go with the transformation and understand that transformation is a positive thing. There's a balance to that. So I would read that in a different way, but I still feel like the overall meaning of the dream and the message is still coming through. That yes, this dream is about releasing things, being kind with myself as I release it, not forcing it, and understanding it's through this releasing that I'm going to go through a transformation that'll be most beneficial to me. Where the Chariot talks about overcoming a battle and being victorious in that battle and still being in a positive place. So then the last card is one of these wand cards. I said the Two of Wands. So we would have the Two of Fire or the Two of Air. So the Two of Fire, I noticed that all these cards in the deck that deal with the element of fire are all planetary cards, like the stars, Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, all that. And here it is Mercury. It is Mercury. We can see a representation of Mercury with his staff, his helmet, and the planet Mercury. So Mercury, what does that represent? Communication, something that must be said or done, something that must be communicated. So that's what we see here. So I generally don't see fire as a communication element. I see it as something that must be done. So if I interpret that in this way, it still goes with what I say with the Two of Wands, energy needing to be expressed or energy needing to be done. But this really, because I don't see wands as fire, I see wands as air. The Two of Air here, we see two images of these little sprites with what I imagine looks like a pendulum. This talks to me more about communication. And I'm looking at the book, and it does say that that is a pendulum. And it's talking about guidance and truth being evident. And that feels more of the way I would interpret the Two of Wands. That here there is something that needs to be done, so something that needs to be considered before going into action. So while fire talks about action for me, or purification, air talks to me more about guidance and intellect and creativity, although fire can be creativity as well. I would suggest that the two of air really goes hand in hand instead of the two of fire. Because again, I'm looking at this and suggesting that there needs to be consideration before action is taken, but action is going to be taken because the wands tell me about movement of energy forward. So that's how I would read this and interpret this spread. If you decide to use this spread for yourself, please share with me. I'd like to know how it worked out and what you found. And if you do a video, share the link with me. Until next time, I love you. Blessed be.